Talk about Scottish business and independence. Contingency planning for a second Scottish independence vote is reportedly underway in Westminster. As we were hearing from Michael Hewson at the start of the programme, the pound fell 0.6% against the US dollar yesterday after the Daily Telegraph reported that Prime Minister Theresa May allow a referendum provided it takes place after Brexit negotiations are complete. So, is a new independence vote inevitable? And if so, what does Scottish firms make of the options that they could have? To try and make sense of this, we're joined by Gordon Macintyre-Kemp, the Chief Executive of Business for Scotland. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, David.
Now, to maybe the more jaded and cynical observer, it may feel like we've been talking about the next Scottish independence vote almost as soon as the first one finished. Do you think that a new independence vote is inevitable?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it will very probably happen before Brexit. Basically, what happened in 2014 is that Scots were told that they had to vote no in order to stay in the EU. And that if they voted yes, that would mean leaving the EU and leaving the all-important single market. Well, it turned out the opposite was true. And as a result, the UK that Scottish voters voted to stay part of no longer exists. And that kind of makes the first result null and void. Let's be absolutely clear here. If Brexit hadn't happened, or if Brexit had happened but not been against the will of the Scottish people, then we wouldn't actually be revisiting the independence debate for a generation. It's all about the fact that what the Scottish people were promised in terms of what will happen if you vote no just hasn't happened. It's not just EU. There's multiple promises on more powers that people feel they were let down by Westminster. And so basically Westminster had the chance to end it for a generation, and it tried to take advantage of the vote, and it's backfiring.
Okay, so what you're saying is that clearly the landscape has changed so much that does justify a second vote. But what do Scottish businesses make of their options here? I mean, first of all, would you say that broadly speaking, Scottish businesses want independence?
Well, it depends on how you define Scottish businesses. There was some research done after the first referendum that showed that the majority of small to medium-sized enterprise business owners and directors voted for independence. And it all depends. Business is split pretty much down the middle on this issue, as much as the rest of the population. So you can't say what business thinks and what business doesn't think. I run an organisation with over 4,000 members who are all owners and directors of SMEs. And to join our organisation, you have to believe in independence. So it's it's a difficult question to answer. So I think basically we're not going to know the answer until we have another independence referendum. And right now we can't really tell what direction that's going in terms of the polls, because there's just so much uncertainty about what Brexit will actually mean. We're told it will mean about 80,000 jobs going in Scotland. We export more per head than the rest of the United Kingdom. For instance, we have about £120 per second of whisky being exported from Scotland. And so basically Brexit will actually have a far worse impact in Scotland than it will have in the rest of the United Kingdom. So essentially, I think people are saying, well, we need to see how the negotiations go to begin with. And once the direction is set, then people will be able to make a decision as to whether or not they think independence is the better option for Scotland's economy. Gordon,
we've seen maybe a surprisingly resilient economy since the June referendum for the UK as a whole. Clearly, we haven't come out yet, but we have seen the economy bear up maybe a bit better than expected. Some would say that this talk of another independence vote for Scotland just really creates even more maybe confusion and uncertainty. What would your comeback to that be?
Well, I think the answer is quite clear that if Scotland were able to actually have a deal that allows us to have access to the single market, then that actually would bring certainty to Scotland. There would also be advantages to the rest of the United Kingdom if that could be done, in terms of lots of businesses that are actually based in the rest of the UK being able to access Europe through their Scottish offices, etc. At the end of the day, we were told yesterday that the pound had dropped on the worries about having a second independence referendum. And you said there that it dropped 0.6%. 0.6%. Well, the pound dropped 16% since Brexit. There's a world of difference there. And Deutsche Bank say it's going to drop another 16% during the Brexit negotiations. So we're looking at 32% drop in the value of the pound versus 0.6% on worries of a Scottish referendum. I think we need to put this into context here. The uncertainty is coming from Brexit. The uncertainty is coming from the fact that the Westminster Government doesn't seem to understand what the impacts of Brexit will be, and that it appears to be going for a hard Brexit, which it doesn't necessarily have a mandate for, that will severely damage not just Scotland's economy, but the rest of the UK's economy. And in terms of has the economy held up well since Brexit? Well, Brexit hasn't happened. What's happened is we've voted for Brexit. There has been some worrying signs. In 2 years' time, when the UK actually does leave the EU, that's when you're going to see a difference. That's when you're going to start seeing big impacts on inflation, job losses, companies actually leaving the UK. So we can't say that it hasn't happened yet.
We've got to leave things there, Gordon, because the clock is against us. But Gordon Macintyre-Kemp, Chief Executive of Business for Scotland, thanks for joining us and talking about what the potential of a second Scottish independent vote could have for businesses north and south of the borders. Now,